Dr. Cam Calder.
Mr Chair, it's an absolute delight to take a short call on this omnibus bill, the Marine Legislation Bill. Part 1, as we've heard, amends the Maritime Transport Act. Part 2, the Exclusive Economic Zone and Continental Shelf Environmental Effects 2012. We as a government are committed to building a more competitive and productive economy, and this bill highlights our commitment to creating strong and sensible legislation that works. It aims to improve the clarity and the consistency and effectiveness of the Maritime Transport Act, which we heard earlier, and it will also provide more certainty around the laws involved, as well as improving safety, enforcement practices and environmental protection. We know that successful economic and environmental policy can and must go hand in hand. This is why we're putting in place policies to help local economies who rely on their ports and harbours and ensure our unique environment is protected. The reforms, as we've heard, will provide greater certainty and reduced compliance costs for industry. That's good. Increased efficiency from avoiding the duplication of processes. Yes. And enhanced environmental effects management. This is dear to all our hearts. And of course, the opportunity, as we've heard earlier, for improved public and iwi participation. This is a decisive piece of legislation which highlights our commitment to building a more competitive and productive economy. We strongly believe that the natural environment is our greatest asset. That's why the bill places significant focus on addressing gaps in our current legislation and better aligning regional and national interests. Now, I've made no secret in the past, Mr Chairman, of being a Naki boy, and I'm proud of coming from Taradise.
You are.
Proud of coming from Taradise, and I've grown up with the oil industry. From the earliest years, I can remember a nodding donkey down at Ngāmutu Beach that at one stage was the longest producing oil well in the world.
Is that right?
The longest producing oil well in the world, Mr Chairman. And as we'd go there, go swimming occasionally, you'd see oil actually coming up from the sand, because it does that, such is the richness of Taradise.
Natural.
Now, that oil industry, which is worth $2 billion, Mr Chairman, $2 billion to our country, the third or fourth leg of our economic prosperity, coexists, Mr Chairman, with an outstanding world-leading dairy industry and, of course, a wonderful tourism industry for those New Zealanders and world travellers who see the joy and the delights to be found in that blessed province of Taranaki. Now, of course, Mr Chairman, this could not be the case were it not for a credible concentration by the major players in the industry on health, security and environment and safety issues within the industry. And that's why, Mr Chairman, it gladdens my heart to see in Part 2, Mr Chairman, Clause 90. Clause 90, which the Select Committee, I understand, in a unanimous display of good faith and good fellowship, recommended amending so that they could insert definitions related to the discharge of harmful substance, the dumping and incineration of waste and other matter at sea, and a new definition of mining activity, which would ensure that this term covered prospecting as well as other events. So that would ensure that, with the new definition of mining discharge, would ensure that hydraulic fracturing, a very worthwhile technique used to improve the productivity of our fields there and used with due respect to the environment, would be subject to the legislation. So, as a proud boy from the Naki, someone who is determined to see New Zealand achieve its best economic potential with due regard to the environment, Mr Chairman, I commend this bill to the House.
Mr Chair.
Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Chair. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou kia ora. I rise to speak on Part 2 of this bill, the Marine Legislation Bill. I want to talk about two SOPs in particular, two amendments. The first is SOP 347, which introduces new Clause 102A. Now, I don't want to bore anyone watching parliamentary TV with a whole bunch of jargon and numbers. What this amendment does is gives Kiwi no